Hey guys, Hayato here, and I'm trying to do something a little bit different now. I want to be able to give a full-fledged step-by-step course, a free course on YouTube on how you can go ahead and wholesale your very first property. And so this is a complete step-by-step blueprint. There's going to be several parts to it because you just can't put everything in one video. It's going to be really long, and I think people are just going to get bored after a while. So I'm making it into several parts. I believe there's going to be 8 parts for this wholesaling step-by-step blueprint course. So I'm never going to charge for this. It's just going to be up on YouTube. It's going to be a free course. Anyone can watch it. And so hopefully this will help people get started in their wholesale journey and hopefully answer some of the questions that I usually get on my Instagram or TikTok. So, my hope is that this will motivate someone to get started in wholesaling and at the same time get a little bit informed about what are some of the things that they need to do before even considering getting into wholesaling real estate. So this is the very first step into wholesaling real estate, and so this very first part is going to be pretty much a 10,000 feet overview of what it means to wholesale real estate. So without further ado, let's just go right into it. So for those of you who don't know what wholesaling real estate is, I'm just going to try to explain it to you in the easiest way possible so that you can kind of get an understanding of what it is. So pretty much what wholesaling real estate is where you find a home with a seller and then find an interested investor or buyer to purchase that property. So what we do as a wholesaler is to contract that home with a buyer at a higher price than we got it for with the seller. For an example, what happens is, let's say I go and find a property that is for sale and I get that under contract with the seller for, let's say, $30,000. Then what I go ahead and do is I see that the investors are looking to purchase similar properties, but the properties that they're looking to buy for on the market are going for like 40 or 50. That means I can put a 10K, maybe 20K assignment on this property, and instead of selling this property for 30K, which I got under contract for, I can sell it for 40 and make a 10K fee on that property. And so I would go to the investor and sell it for 40, and then that's where I would make that $10,000 fee. That is pretty much the concept of wholesaling real estate. So the very first question I usually get asked is, well, what market should I go into when I start wholesaling real estate? And that's honestly a really great question. And the answer for me is that it totally depends. So it depends on whether or not you want to stay local or you want to go out of state. And that's completely up to you whether or not you want to stay local. If you know your market really well and you know your streets and your addresses and zip codes very well, you know how the market is running locally, then it might be really good for you to just go ahead and do so. In my case, I live in LA and it was just harder for us to find properties to go ahead and sell to investors. So for us, we went out of state in Cleveland and Memphis. So those are the markets that we're focused in, and we're looking to go ahead and expand to more areas, but it will most likely be in the Midwest area or, relatively cheaper areas compared to LA, just because they're a lot easier to go under contract with, and a lot more investors can get started in those markets as well. Again, it really depends on you, on which market you want to go ahead and wholesale in. Another big indicator on what market you might want to go into is look where the investors are going. So you can find investors on Bigger Pockets, or you can go find them on Connected Investors, and usually you'll see people being like, oh, I invest, I do 10 properties a month in Alabama, or I do 10 properties a month in Detroit. And you'll see a lot of investors saying where they're investing in and what kind of zip codes, and maybe even some criteria that they have, saying, hey, I'm looking for, a 3-bed, 2-bath property here and wherever. So those are some of the places that I highly recommend you going to. And if you see the same city and state over and over again from multiple investors, that can tell you, hey, it might be a really good area to go ahead and find properties and wholesale in. So you can see on Bigger Pockets, a lot of people sometimes even just post threads like, who's buying properties right now? And you can go ahead and see that there are a lot of investors that pretty much shout out, hey, I'm looking into areas like this and I am buying a 4-unit for a few weeks in investor in New York, in Illinois. This is the place I'm trying to get properties at. So you can go ahead and scroll through Bigger Pockets. You can find out what investors are looking for. Here is Connected Investors. These are, again, looking for a buyer for off-market properties in South Oregon. You can see some people are going to post stuff like, I need off-market deals in Indianapolis. And if you see these people coming up time and time again, you're going to know, okay, so maybe this is a good market to go into. So this is just one thing that I would suggest looking into as well. So that's something that you can definitely look into, and that's what I would definitely recommend starting with. Otherwise, here's how you can go ahead and do a little bit of market research yourself. So something that I like to always do is I like to find properties, and I like to make sure that, the properties that I find is something that I would invest myself if I had unlimited amounts of money. So obviously you want the numbers to make sense for the seller that's selling you the property, and you want to make it make sense for you as a wholesaler, because you need to be making a fee of some sort. And you also need to make sure that the numbers work for the investor as well. So putting yourself in the shoes of all three parties is really, really important. And so looking at the market, into investing a market as an investor is a good way to think about whether or not you want to go in that market, and figure out if that's a place that you want to wholesale real estate in. So keeping that in mind and making sure you kind of have like an investor mindset when going to look for markets, you can look for job growth. That's one of the things that you can look for. You can also look at population growth. You can look at major employers in that area so that you can make sure that there are stable jobs over there. And let's say for an investor, that's great, because if you have a tenant that has a stable job, they can continue to pay rent and you can cash flow every single month pretty consistently. Another thing you can look for in that market is whether or not they have a diversified workforce. So you don't want just one major employer kind of having everyone in their umbrella. You want a diverse workforce that people are working in, so that if something goes wrong in the economy, one or two big industries are affected, but there are other 3 or 4 industries that are supporting that economy over there in that market, and they are able to still pay their workers and they can still have a stable job there. So that's definitely something to look at as well. And I know this is a little bit controversial, but a lot of people look at colleges and universities. So if there's a well-renowned university or college near your market, that could be very, very good. That can mean a lot of things. That can mean there's going to be a lot of college graduates maybe living in that area, or a lot of people do like university areas and college areas as well, because a lot of students will be paying rent and such for the properties, and they can collect rent every single month that way. So that's something that you can look into to see whether or not your market has a university or college nearby it. And lastly, something you can also look at is the neighborhood, of course, which is, does it have a high crime rate? Does it have a great school nearby? Does it have good elementary, preschool, middle school, all of that? And does it have a community that people actually get involved in? So that's something that you can definitely look into and kind of have that investor mindset to see, okay, maybe that is a good place to go into, not just as a wholesaler, but also as an investor as well. The more and more you know about your markets and your zip codes and everything, the more and more you're going to be able to negotiate not only with the investor, but also with the seller to get the price that you want. So these are very, very important things to look out for before you get started with anything else in wholesaling real estate. So this was part 1 of the free step-by-step wholesaling real estate course on YouTube. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope you guys are able to find a market that will work for you in wholesaling real estate. And I hope to see you on the next video, which we're going to talk about the next steps after finding the market. So things like finding a cash buyer, how to go and find those people, networking with those people. And so that's the next part that we're going to go into, and I hope to see you in the next video. Peace.